I'd say that I make 4 different things: maps, games, videos, and music. Of these, I'd say that I'm most technically proficient at mapping and game design. However, I've achieved the least from them. You know why? Because of my ambition. I'd jump into a massive project with all the determination in the world. As the game or map bloated, I would lose interest and would gradually get crushed beneath the full scale of what I had started. As a result of this, I'm not good at finishing these things, but have a very good technical knowledge of the early stages. I can create a game or map in my head and see every small detail before I begin. Some people would say it's a gift, but I'd say it's a curse. I'm a useless musician. I don't know how to play any instrument. I don't know any musical theory. And yet, even to this day, I enjoy listening to my early pieces and feel that I have more to show for the time that I have invested in this hobby. The difference? I started small. I was fully aware that I wasn't able to make music and didn't try anything big or difficult sounding. I just put in some notes and kept changing them around until they sounded right. I didn't know how to control what I was doing and ended up going wherever the music took me. Want to hear my first song? Yeah, a bit rubbish. But for me, this was groundbreaking. I had my very own song. It only took an hour or 2 to make, and best of all, I could now make my own music for my games rather than having to rely on others. And yet, I continue to make music just for the fun of it. The second song was an improved version of the first, and even now I think it's one of the most memorable tunes that I've made. To this day I throw it into various projects of mine. See if you can find it on my other videos. Here's a sample. In fact, those first 11 songs are very valuable to me. They don't use fancy instruments, and they're nothing more than simple tunes, but each and every one of them was formed in a completely natural and unforced way. I put in some notes and see where they took me, improving on them version after version. It was like discovering a new world for me, and I felt completely out of control when making them. I never knew where they would take me, and yet the lack of control made me only more excited to carry on with them. After that, I felt that it was time to move on to the next stage. I lumped the first 11 songs together, called them my first album, and started on the next. I began to take control over what I was making. I'd start using more instruments at once, and more advanced variations. I don't know the technical terms. I'm not a musician. I just like making music. The second album will forever remind me of my first year at university, because that's where I made it. The program I made it on, Fruity Loop Studio, was still a mystery to me, but I'd get by and slowly improve my knowledge over time. I knew what I needed to. It was only after my 20th song that I gave myself permission to use more advanced instruments. By deliberately withholding certain tools until I was ready, it kept me focused with learning the basics. It also made a definitive path for me to follow. I longed for the day when I could use proper instruments, and it meant all the more once I got there and was able to use them to good effect. I had slowly built up a knowledge of what worked well together and knew how to use multiple instruments without making it sound noisy. Only with this slow, sensible path had I reached this stage, and I finally constructed my third album, titled Grandparent Edition. Each of these 6 songs took months to make. They went through tens of versions, but perhaps more importantly, I still ended with finished songs. And that's how I grew to love making music. If somebody criticises my maps or games, I get defensive, but if somebody attacks my music, I'm far more laid back, because I enjoy listening to them. They're like my children. I understand that they're not perfect, but they are for me. They're exactly what I want from songs, and because of that, they're just as good and addictive as any catchy tune anybody else can make. In fact, I find the majority of criticism comes from people with a lot of technical ability, but who have never finished a song of their own in their lives. Kind of like me with mapping and game design really. Well, I say that. Once I realised why I was doing so well with my music, I applied the same principles to other areas of my life. I started making simple games. I realised that there's a lot more to making a game than simply being able to make it. You've got to be able to fine-tune, playtest, polish, and more importantly, finish it, or at least be happy enough to release it as it is. I have also done this with mapping and now have 5 finished maps under my belt. I still regret wasting 10 years of my life half-finishing games. Every time I thought I couldn't be bothered to finish them because they weren't advanced enough, when actually the opposite was true. You have to start simple and work your way up, even if you think you know better. A finished, simple project is worth more than 100 half-finished sketches. Don't be fooled or tempted into going down the other path. I've been there and it's not worth it. Things always take 10 times longer than you expect, and you always overestimate your abilities. I've always said that the journey is more important than the destination, but it's also nice to finish an adventure and to start planning the next one. Don't leave everything half finished. You can check out and download the 3 albums on Bandcamp for free if you like. Thanks Thomas Kramkowski for giving me some money for them. I really appreciate that. I suggest everybody else checks them out before doing that though, just in case. I'm not a musician after all. But like with any project, a finished song is worth more than the sum of its parts. I remember working on them and look back at early versions fondly, particularly if I've listened to the finished versions a lot. They serve as a way of remembering certain stages of my life and are another stage that I feel that I've completed. I don't make music much anymore. A bit like with juggling, I suppose that I have made what I needed to and have the ability to make more as and when I need to. Indeed, I write music for some of my videos, including Going Low in CSGO. None of this would have been possible if I hadn't given it a go. Try writing your own song. You might be surprised.